name correctly, Nick. And if you're ready, please share your screen and off you pop. Thank you very much, Nick.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Can everybody see the slides and hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Nick.
Fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about commuter student support here at the University of Manchester, which fits into some of the wider work that's going on around awarding gaps at the university. So introduction to commuter students, you just need to search commuter students and they are always in the news. So there's always articles about commuter students feeling locked out, left out, growing in number. We actually had one of our biological sciences students featured on the BBC earlier this year talking about what it's like to commute to the University of Manchester as a student of biology. So we know across the sector that this is a group of students that has lower rates of progression and success. At the University of Manchester, it's about 20% of all of our students, maybe 25 if you just count on-campus learners instead of digital learners, but also they are from some priority backgrounds for our institution. So those low participation neighborhoods, working class white male students, students of Pakistani and Bangladeshi descent, mature students, and also students with caring responsibilities. So we started looking at commuters. We've done some work looking at them in the last decade, and then revisiting some of that stuff in about 2020. So we were looking at our students who commute. What do they think and how do they feel? And a lot of the stuff that we found was they didn't really feel like a real student. They felt out of the loop. They didn't have people that they could travel to and from campus with. They didn't have those social networking opportunities compared to what they imagine other students have. They felt that there wasn't the adequate access to staff and services. They didn't really have places to call home on campus, so places to store items, reheat food, rest and recharge. The perennial thing about timetabling, inflexible public transport, and finding suitable parking. So when we found out about this, we thought, well, some of these things we can do things about, a lot of them we can't, but then how do we support commuter students moving forwards? So drawing from quite an old study now, it's back in the days of HEFKE, looking at group differences between success and progress generally, not just for commuter students. And if you take two groups of students, the one that tends to have better outcomes at university tend to report they have good relationships with staff and other students. They tend to say they have a greater sense of belonging and community and that they feel supported by daily interactions. They tend to report that they have social and peer networks within the institution they can draw information from. And they also tend to say they have a good user experience of teaching, learning, and assessment. And the reason why this is here is because this is one of the slides that I actually give to my students, telling them about things that correlate with success. I'll just pull it straight from there. At the University of Manchester, we also subscribe to the 5 ways of wellbeing. We call it the 6 ways of wellbeing. And again, these are small everyday actions that help promote mental wellbeing, but they also correlate with student success. So about being active about what you're doing, active about your learning, connecting with others, giving to others. That can be giving your time, your knowledge, your lack of knowledge in a lecture. Oh, I didn't understand that. Did you understand it? Oh, good. That makes me feel better. Taking notice. So not just what you're doing and how you're getting on with things, feeling isolated, but how are other people doing? What's happening next year in the course and things like that. And then obviously learning and discovering, which is something that we hope our students will be doing at university. We also had some studies from our careers service from quite a few years ago that interviewed students that quickly get into jobs that make a great start to their graduate career and students who remained unemployed for longer. And again, we saw very similar sort of things that correlated with that success post-graduation. So it was that connecting with other people, those peer networks, communicating, so talking to people about things like employability, well-being, that kind of thing, taking action. So that's sort of like, if I don't understand something, I'm going to take action. I'm going to go and consult people. I'm going to do something about it. Reflecting, so learning about themselves and how they work and how they learn. Exploring, learning about the outside world. That's that learning and discovering again. And then bouncing back. So having that user experience of teaching and learning that allows them to, when they haven't done so well, come back and get the support and do better next time. So I want to do a tiny little activity, if that's okay. I'd like to know, how would we identify commuter students? So if you go to the Padlet, which hopefully is now linked in the chat, I've put a little provocation, which is how to define what a commuter student is. All ideas are welcome. So what I'd like you to do is go there briefly for a minute, just type down, how would you define a commuter student? No bad ideas, there's no bad ideas. And then if you type it down and we're still going, have a little chat with the person next to you. But then I'll bring us back in like a minute or two and we'll continue. So over to you. Okay, I'm just going to give maybe 1 more minute. I can see the things rolling in, which is fantastic. Okay, we've got some fantastic stuff coming in here. So students that live at home or with family, students who consistently turn up late to sessions. Yep, that's how a lot of them are perceived. Students that can't walk in or that take transport that's longer than anywhere between 30 or 45 minutes, it looks like. Students living at home again, travels from outside the city or town where the institution is. Some areas have a list of them, which is fantastic. Significant distance in time away from the university, living at home again, traveling in, living at home. Yeah, some fantastic stuff here. Outside of the city, commuting in. Oh, this is great. And we've got different travel times as well, materially affected by their commutes. Oh, this is all fantastic stuff. That's absolutely great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue with the presentation, just in the interest of time. But thank you so much for putting all of those in. So at the University of Manchester, we didn't really have a proper institutional definition. We saw what other universities had, and we sort of came up with something that sort of correlated with those things we were seeing about student success. So our institutional definition is about any on-campus learner without the opportunity to form institutional peer networks in their place of residence. And we feel this is something that helps us focus on solutions rather than problems, because if we focus on distance traveled and time and things like that, those aren't things we can actually change. Those aren't things we can necessarily provide to the students. Whereas if they don't have the opportunity to form institutional peer networks in their place of residence, that is something we can probably do something about. And there's this nice quote from a University of Manchester graduate back in 2018, saying that some of our students did travel in quite far, but they didn't consider themselves commuters because they were living with other students. So it's that access to social and cultural capital that comes from that residential support that takes place among students. So one of the outcomes from this was we started a commuter peer mentoring scheme to try and give equity of access to social and cultural capital. So we have a central peer support structure which trains peer mentors and pass leaders. So we were just making a separate version of that that was for incoming commuters. So we offered peer networks in the place of residence, which is something we already provide to our learners, or is already provided to our learners in halls or in student houses. So the mentors are trained and they look after students in postcode groups. So we used to do manual assignments. Now we've collaborated with people in geography to do spatial mapping. And here is an example of the different mentoring groups that have been computationally put together for over 1,000 students now. So we initiated a pilot in 2020. It was 150 mentees, 5 students per mentor, because back then you had to be socially distanced to meet up outside. We've iteratively scaled this, and so now we can offer this to over 1,000 new first and foundation year students. And what we've also done is helped the students to create a commuter society at the Students' Union and allowed continuity of that by linking it with the peer support structures. So it's not just something that is formed and then when there's no committee members 1 year, it just goes and never comes back. We've had societies go through things like that in the past. We also do a lot of pre-arrival events for commuter students. So this is to address that thing about feeling out of the loop or not feeling like a University of Manchester student. So it's this essential event that is offered with input from the community society, the peer mentors and senior staff. These are students that mostly are already living in and around and will already have their route to commute in. So getting them to see what the campus is like when it's quiet and familiarize themselves with that, and also meet other students that are like them. So the first University of Manchester students they meet are in the same situation as them, so they can feel more like a University of Manchester student rather than being isolated and different from everyone else. And many of our schools also do subject-specific or program-specific drop-in things in that pre-arrival week. It helps to link up those who commute so they can commute in together or meet up or be dragged along to some of those welcome events. I used to be an advisor in the halls of residence, and you would hear the students saying, oh, there's this fair tomorrow, should we go? Oh yeah, and they would drag people along from their halls. We're trying to give that kind of peer support in these different postcodes so that people can do that and meet people and come in with them. And it supports what I call the partial transition of commuters from pre-university to post-university life. So when we talk to commuters versus home students who've moved away from home or international students, the commuters will often say, like, I don't necessarily feel that different to how I was before because I'm living in the same place a lot of the time. And instead of going to college during the day, I'm just going to university. So that is, I would say, a partial transition to being a university student, rather than some of our students who move away. That is a big transition for them. Everything has changed. They feel like they're a student. They feel like they're immersed. So putting students in contact with each other where they can share these things. Oh, actually, there are other students like this. I'm not alone. I'm not on my own. We have also managed to get some funding and space put in for a commuter hub and lounge to help with that feeling of welcome on campus, that community and that belonging. So we secured some student experience strategy funding to convert the old head of school offices and staff common room from the old business school into a nice place that has soft seating and areas to socialize. It has kitchen facilities with microwaves, fridges, instant hot water, study spaces, quiet and prayer rooms, lockers of various sizes with a resetting code so they can sort of be used once, not having to deal with keys and things like that, shower facilities and a changing room. And these areas can be used by any services or groups that want to come and meet commuter students. So our peer mentors and societies do stuff there, but also say our environmental sustainability team come and do pop-ups in there, or our career service, because they know they're engaging with commuters where they are, where they feel at home. And here's another thing from the BBC article where our first year biology student was talking about it feels like her house. They have nowhere to go otherwise. You can always just come in and strike up a conversation with a person because you have something in common about the commute or about sort of train delays and things like that. So feeling that you're not alone and feeling that you're part of that sort of community and that you are like other students. So what do our students and alumni say? So because it's been a transition from not much support to a lot more support, we actually are in contact with alumni who were commuters thinking about what was it like back then and what is it like now. So they talk a lot about the fact that they have these peer mentors that will check in and arrange meetups. There's lots of sessions and activities that are done by the Commuter Society. This is an interesting one. So a student saying, even though I haven't utilized all the opportunities offered to students, it's always nice to know that it's there. And that's really important because actually it might be, say, we found that students are engaging less and less in the commuter peer mentoring. You might see that as bad, but actually, if they feel more at home from the pre-arrival events and from the wider university culture, they may not feel the need to get in contact with their peer mentors, but it's nice to have them and nice to know they're there. And here's a student who was an undergraduate before the changes and a postgraduate after and can see the difference there. And also people just talking about good place to chill out between lectures, loads of events tailored to commuters and things like that. Whoops. So this is my last slide, which is just something on the wider culture. So we see now that commuters are being mentioned more and more in places where it matters. So even people from other schools across the university saying that all of these things have transformed life for commuters. We see, for example, in the Teacher of the Year award guidance that their definition of reach includes reaching different groups of students, and they give commuters as an example. And also external requests for donations but from our alumni also mention that the money can be used to support commuter students. So it's really gone across the university and it's really being mentioned as like an ecosystem for support and integrated into lots of different things. So that is the end of my talk. Because it is institution-wide, I have so many people to thank. So all of the teams here have been involved in the lounge, in the mentoring, in the pre-arrival events. And I just want to say thank you to them all. It is a huge team effort. And I believe I am more or less on time, so I will stop. sharing.